How beautiful it is when the people of God dwell together in unity and praise the name of the Lord. For this month of February, when we explore our roots, I want to embark on a new sermon series entitled Revisiting Our Roots. As you know, we began on this Wednesday with the professional genealogist to come and help us discover who we are and our family lineages, not just as an act of genealogical research, but as an act of spiritual discipline, so that we might know who we are and know who we are in God. So for the month of February, I'll be exploring some of the biblical genealogies and what they mean for us today. So I attract your attention this morning to the book of beginnings. In the book of Genesis, chapter 5, I hold up two verses to be spotlighted for our sermonic consideration today. Genesis chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. The text reads thusly: "This is the list of the descendants of Adam. When God created humankind, he made them in the likeness of God. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them and named them humankind when they were created." Thus ends the reading of the word. Amen. I just want to talk for a few moments from the subject on unquestionable parentage. On unquestionable parentage. There is a concept in biblical studies which may be unfamiliar to you, but if you put on your thinking caps and go to school with me for a moment, I promise we might learn just a little something. And that concept that resonates in biblical studies and finds a consonant in our text today is the notion of the Epiponomous Ancestor. You can go look it up yourself, but it's Epiponomous Ancestor. And that is simply the first ancestor in a lineage by which a tribe, a clan, or a group of people finds its name and its identity. The epipon, the one for which the people is given their name and their character. And many of us know that finding that one ancestor for us that unlinks the family tree can often be a difficult challenge. The silence due to the pain of our history has become such that many of our elders just simply did not talk about where they came from and how they evolved and who their parents were. Secrecy around deceit and other kinds of cover-ups due to indiscretions and indecencies may have evolved, which makes it very rare to find the epiponymous ancestor in our lineages. Many of us are unlike Questlove, who, that very gifted and talented musician, who found that he had direct lineage to the Clotilda, which was the last slave ship brought to America after the outlawing of the international slave trade. Or the Tucker family here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, who can trace their lineage back to the first Africans brought here in 1619. Or a family in South Carolina who, through documentation, has been able to discover the name of the first African brought from Africa to the horror and the hopefulness in the American experience. It's rare, very rare that we can find our first ancestor that set things off for us and created a lineage of being. This is a rare discovery, but in a very real sense, beloved, our family lineages predate any human conception and continuity. For the text tells us today that we are descended from a larger family, from the family of Adam. For the Bible here in our text says, this is the list of the descendants of Adam. You remember Adam, don't you? The very first man created. You remember Adam, the one who had the privilege to partner with God and sit down before the very divine self as God paraded all of reality in front of him, and Adam had the opportunity to give it a name. You remember Adam, don't you? The same Adam that stumbled in the garden and created for us a continuity of sin that we have yet to be able to eradicate. You remember Adam, don't you? The one who raised the son, who killed his own brother. That very Adam. This is the list of the descendants of Adam, who had so much potential and faltered and failed and yet got back up and continued to live. Yes, these are the descendants of Adam, but the text presents for us a rather predicament of interpretation. For one would expect that after announcing that these are the descendants of Adam, that you would then hear the listing of the descendants of Adam, but rather the text starts talking about God. God who created humankind, God who made humankind in his likeness and image, God who made male and female, God who blessed them, and God who named them humankind when they were created. The text talks more about God than it does about Adam. And I submit to you today, beloved, that while all of humanity may derive itself from Adam, all of humanity has its greater origins in its ultimate paternity and maternity in the person named God. God is our parent. God is our father. God is our mother. God is the one who gives us life itself. And so we need not wonder where we come from. We need not have any doubts about our paternity or our maternity. We need not be confused about who we are, because we emanate from the very heart and mind of Almighty God. God is indeed our heavenly parent. And that becomes significant for us as a people whose very souls were debated by the dominant culture, whose very lives were considered at some point subhuman, and who were believed to have been cursed with color as a part of the failure of Noah and his people in the reestablishment of creation after the flood. No, we don't have to wonder and worry about what others say of us. We know we are the children of the Most High God. And if anybody asks you who I am, tell them above everything else, I'm a child of God. You may tell them I'm a registered Republican or Democrat, but above that, I'm a child of God. You may tell them I'm a citizen of the Commonwealth of Virginia or Maryland or the District of Columbia, but above that, I'm a child of God. You may tell them I'm an alumni of some HBCU or some other institution, but above that, and a primary importance is I am indeed a child of the Most High God. My heritage is uninterrupted. My pedigree is uninterred. My parentage is unquestionable. We are the children of a living God. And as such, beloved, there are three aspects of this unquestionable parentage. The first thing that I see here in the text that I want to lift for our consideration is that as people with an unquestionable parentage, we resemble our parent. How many times have you heard somebody tell you, you look just like your mama, you act just like your daddy? Well, beloved, we resemble our heavenly parent, God. For we, according to the text, are made in the likeness of God. No, we do not have a physical resemblance to God, for God is spirit and has no body other than Jesus Christ. But we do resemble God in our capacity to love, to do justice and mercy, and to walk humbly before God our Creator. Yes, we are those who are made in the image of God. We look like God. We resemble God when we do right, when we love, when we do justice, when we treat our neighbor with dignity and respect. We look like, we resemble our heavenly parent. Beloved, I submit to you then today that because we are made in the likeness of God, then in some respects, God looks like us. Yes, I know that we have been laboring in Christianity with a debate over the color of Jesus for centuries. But I would submit to you that any insistence on having a white Jesus is a theological error with a social agenda of oppression and corruption. For when we insist that Jesus must be white, it narrows the human family to only include some folks and not others. But if you understand that we are made in the likeness of God, then, beloved, God in some ways looks like us. So if you're Asian, you ought to have an Asian Jesus. If you're brown, you are Hispanic, you ought to have a brown Jesus. And if you come from African descent anywhere in the diaspora, then you ought to be entitled to a black Jesus, because we are made in the image of God. And when God looks like us and we look like God, it broadens the human family to be inclusive of all of God's created children. For every family under the sun derives its name from the holy other of God. Yes, beloved, you resemble your parent. So when somebody tells you that you may not look good, you ought to say, but yeah, I may not look good to you. I may not uphold your aesthetic of beauty. I may not ascribe to your understanding and philosophical concept of pulchritude and beauty, but I look like my daddy. I look like my mama. I resemble my God, because I can love you when you don't love me. I can show you mercy when you're hard on me. I can be just when you don't deserve it. I can look like God because I resemble my heavenly parent. Second thing that takes place that tells you who you are when you've got an unquestionable parentage is you come from a big family. The text here says that God made them male and female, that there is diversity in the family. Not everybody in the family looks alike. You got some tall folks, you got some short folks, you got some skinny folks, you got some broad folks, you've got some lettered folks, you got some unlettered folks, you've got some rich folks, you got some poor folks. But in a big family, we have to understand that we are all a part of the same family tree and lineage. Yes, we've got a big family. And the problem with the world today is that we try to narrow the family, and therefore it forces us to decide who's in the family and who's out of the family. But I'm here to tell you, beloved, that if you understand that you are a descendant of an unquestionable parentage, then you got to understand that you've got some Republican brothers and sisters along with some Democratic brothers and sisters. You got some straight brothers and sisters. You got some gay brothers and sisters. You got some rich brothers and sisters. You got some poor brothers and sisters. You got some degreed brothers and sisters. You got some dry dropout brothers and sisters. You got some suburban brothers and sisters. You got some street corner brothers and sisters. We are encompassing of the entirety of the whole human family. So when you can open up the door and open up a table, then you have allowed yourself to start acting like the father and the mother that gave us birth. God has expanded a human family, not just to be those in the church, but all of his creation. So then we do not look narrowly through a religious prism that says only Christians are God's people. For God created all. So we've got some Muslim brothers and sisters. We've got some pagan brothers and sisters, because we are a part of the same human family. And we've got to start expanding the family so that we can embrace those who may not look like our particular branch of the human family. And then lastly, beloved, you come from good stock. When you understand that you have an unquestionable parentage, you realize that you come from good stock. For the text says that he named them humankind. The word here in Hebrew is Adam or Adam, which means people. And the people predicament in the text is that we often view our humanity in such negative terms as we define ourselves by our sinfulness and our fallenness rather than the God that is within us. For all of us have some God in us. The worst of us have some God in us. The best of us have some evil in us. But most importantly, there is some God in each and every one of us. And if we can just tap into that Godness within, we can do and be so much more than our sinfulness and our schisms and our divisions, our failures and our faults. If we realize that we are indeed people with the likeness and the image of God imprinted indelibly upon us, then we can do more. We can do more than just divide ourselves along race and sexual preferences. We can do more than just classify ourselves according to class and the haves and the have-nots. If we understand the God within us, we can do more than just go to war all the time, but we can make peace and love rather than hate. If we understand the God within us, we can do so much more than what we think we are capable of. Because, beloved, the Spirit of the living God is within each of us. There's some God in you. I know there are people who have told you you are godless, but there's God in you because God is our heavenly parent. I know that there may be folks that will remind you of your transgressions and error, but there's more to you than just those things which have falsely defined you, because there is some God in you. And we, as Brian Stevenson says, we are more than the worst thing that we've ever done, because there is some God in each of us. Let me see if I can put some legs on this so that it walks through the corridors of your consciousness. During my collegiate years, I was such a long way from home, and times would get difficult and my studies would become overwhelming, and the cultural climate was something that was alien and foreign to me. And I would call my great aunt, and this is in the days when long distance calls were calculated by the minute and not by some all-encompassing plan. And I would tell her of my struggles. And then she would remind me of a story from the family. And out of respect, I would listen to the story, only to become somewhat angered because there seemed to be no connection with my dilemma and her delivery. She would tell a story that seemed to be totally unrelated to the existential crisis and conundrum that I found myself in at the moment. But upon hanging up the phone and reflecting on the story, what my great aunt was telling me was, son, you come from good stock. So the story that she told reminded me of folks in the family who had already overcome, who had already been able to thrive against insurmountable odds, who were able to continue in a situation that looked like it was bleak and endless. She reminded me that I came from good stock, that I had a story to tell. Yes, we come from people, from Adam, from people who have failed, but we've come from people who have continued to strive and overcome and thrive in the midst of an unwavering system against us. Yes, we come from good stock. And that's what the text here tells us. We come from Adam. Adam who failed in the garden, but we come from good stock because we come not just from Adam, but we come from God, a God who looked beyond Adam's faults and saw his need, a God who loved Adam in spite of his failure in the garden, a God that looked beyond his fault, and a God that recognized that Adam needed some boundaries. So it was a God who sent the law, and when we transgressed the law, God then sent wisdom, and when we ignored wisdom, God sent prophets to tell us right from wrong and to plead with us to come back to the holy home where God resided. And when we disobeyed and ignored the prophets, God decided that he would come himself. So as the old preacher said, he boarded the train of humanity and rode down 42 generations, got off in a little town called Bethlehem, was born in a manger, but grew to a full-grown man who went around doing good. And his good got him in trouble with Roman authority, with ecclesiastical formalism. His good got him in trouble and got him condemned to an old rugged cross. But I tell you, I come from good stock, because the God who came down and died on an old rugged cross was placed in a borrowed tomb early on Sunday morning, got up with all power in heaven and earth in his hands, and overcoming became a possibility. Victory became my inheritance. To sit in heavenly places became my right as a natural child of God. I'm telling you, you got to listen to the stories of the family, because we come from good stock. We come from overcoming stock. We come from continuing struggles, flock. We come from a God who would not fail, who could not fail. We come from a God who's got ultimate victory in his wings. So when you're down and when you're out, when you don't think you can make it, when you're ready to throw in the towel, when you are past giving up, just remember, I come from good stock, for I am a child of the Most High King. I've been blood bought and twice born. I'm a child of the Most High King. I've been down in the baptismal pool, come up a renewed creature. I am a child of the Most High God. And you know what? I've got a birth date and a birth certificate. When I yielded my life to him, I got a new birth date that said, born again, child of God, renewed in the right spirit. I am a child of the Most High King, and I come and you come from the best stock. For God is our heavenly parent, and in him there is no failure and there is no defeat. So, beloved, no matter what this world says of us as a people, we come from good stock. For God is our heavenly parent. And it is in him that we move and breathe and have our very being. If there is someone here today that recognizes your true and authentic lineage is in not just your own personal family tree or genealogy, but is in the lineage of Adam, who has so much potential because God is in him. As the Jews say, we all bear the sparks of divinity. The psalmist declared that we are made a little lower than the angels. There's something regal about you. There's something royal about you. If you want to claim that resplendent royalty today, then we invite you to connect with the Christ and become a part of a faith community. We offer you Jesus Christ, but we also offer you the Mount Olive Church as a place where you can be groomed and grown for ministry and for a kingdom consciousness to fulfill kingdom purposes. If you're here today, there's a number at the bottom of the screen. We invite you to connect with that number, call, and someone will welcome you into the family of the living God. So we extend now the invitation, full of grace and mercy, to all who would, whomsoever will, let him or her come. The invitation is now extended for those of you who have prayer requests. We ask that you would send them in. And for those of you who have yet to set your own table, we encourage you to do so in these intervening moments.
There are some things I may not know. There are some places I can't go, but I am sure of this one thing, that God is